Welcome to Let Freedom Ring. Again, big shout out to the New England Free Jacks. Now 11-1. Big game tomorrow against ATL. Wear your Friday the 13th mask in the stadium in Quincy. Can't wait. Gonna go 12-1. We got security here. We're keeping out Soapy pre-op, or whoever attacked me on the 2-year anniversary show. We're still trying to get to the bottom of that. We do have a detective on it. We don't really have any answers yet. But my guest this week, making his second appearance on Let Freedom Ring. Pleasure, Pete. Welcome to the show.
Good to see you.
Yeah, you too.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, no, happy to have you back. It was a blast last time, so, have to do it again.
Thank you. I had a great time.
So, how you been since the last episode? I think we had you on in, December,
That sounds right. Yeah, it was sometime in the winter. I've been good. I've been very busy. We've been working for a little over a year. When I say we, I mean... me, Brady Watt, Carlos Holmes, Colin Fowler, friend of mine, Chairman Chow, new friend of mine that is, did a video with me a couple of weeks ago. My buddy Jimmy Warren. So I've been working with a really nice, tight-knit team, videographers, producers, and, Brady kind of executive produced the whole thing. And we've been pretty much just going since last March, I want to say. And so now is the culmination of all those efforts. So now we're starting the slow trickle of releasing everything we've been doing for the last year and a half, and it's a lot of fun. But of course, now that we're releasing everything, it's time to start planning for the next set of releases and start recording that stuff. So I've also been in the studio quite a bit and planning out new videos, and I've got a new video to shoot next month. We've got another video premiering this month, and then probably, I don't want to give a date just yet, but let's say early summer, there's going to be another couple of videos coming out that will be from the album that I have coming up with Brady and Carlos Holmes. So it's going to be a busy spring, summer, and then another real busy fall, winter. So the plan is to just keep going and not stop. So it's definitely challenging, and I've been very busy, but that's the fun of it. So
is it almost like a second full-time job, pretty much, or is
more
it
than that?
Really? Okay.
Yeah. I mean, actually, I'm glad that we bring up full-time job, because I think there's a big stigma with people in music and performers to admit that they still work a full-time job. Yeah. It's like, I still work 40, 50 hours a week minimum at my regular job, and then I'm writing and recording and rehearsing, and I got the website. I'm the person taking the product photos. I'm the person writing the blogs. I'm the person that is, running the whole show. I'm more or less a one-man operation when it comes to the rap side of it and the strategy and planning. The music side is largely handled by Brady and Carlos, and then I have worked with really talented videographers that help me in that. But when it comes to the writing of the videos and the storyboarding and the actual booking the sessions and going to do all that, it's all me. So it's a lot. I'd say it's more than a full-time job to stay on top of everything, but that's part of it. And anybody who's serious about any art that they do would tell you the exact same, that the time spent is more than a full-time job, I'd say, but it doesn't feel like that. It doesn't feel like I'm going to work every day.
Yeah, it's something you enjoy, but also you got to think, you're a family man. You're a dad, you're a husband. There's only so many hours in a day. Like, how do you make it all work?
That's the biggest challenge, because no matter how you slice it, even if, I can tell myself 1,000 times, well, I have to do this and this is important. And if I spent a year recording this album, I got to promote it now, got to shoot these videos. But any time spent, doing a video or being in the studio or doing a show or being here is time I'm not with my wife and kids. And, time I have to tell them, oh, Papa's got to go and I'll be back. And so there is that element of balancing how much time is appropriate to dedicate to your life's dream and your craft.
Yeah.
Which sounds like it should be as much as it takes. Yeah. But you do weigh it against how much you're willing to sacrifice time with the kids and the family. So I think that I play a pretty good balance when it comes to that, but it's tough. There's no right or wrong answer when it comes to that. You just kind of have to feel it out, and you're not always right. And there are times where I'll be at the studio till 1:30 in the morning, and my wife will call and say, "How close to your home?" Both kids are awake, and it's like, oh God. And then I'm speeding from Lawrence back to Nashville, and so it's tough, but it is worth it at the end. Well, I'd like to say I hope it's worth it. I sure at this point believe like it's going to be. So,
well, I do want to talk about the videos that you've released recently, because you've been putting them out. I follow all the pages. I just want to talk about one thing. A friend of mine, had him on the show. You were kind of the inspiration to go get him. We had Vinny from Hong Kong, which was super cool. So definitely gotta check that out. One thing though, that I just want to bring it back, because when you were on the show, we kind of talked. We always ask that question: what does it mean to you to be an American? Mm-hmm. And you brought up, you're like, well, we're sitting here drinking bottled water, and I'm not really afraid of what I can say. Having Vinny on the show, being a resident living in China, he actually was like, yeah, I got to be careful here, you know? So, I don't know, any thoughts on that? Like, I know you've traveled a little bit, right?
Yeah, I mean, I've never been to China. Yeah. It'd be cool to see China, but yeah, it's... Anywhere else, I mean, you have to be careful what you say to an extent wherever you go. But I've never been to a place where, I should say, I've never spent a significant amount of time in a place where I had to really watch what I said. I've been to a few places where I knew to keep my mouth shut, but... I mean, I think you know me pretty well. Yeah. I wouldn't survive in a place very long if I had to keep my mouth shut and watch what I say. I mean, it's bad enough. And, to be fair, there's been plenty of folks that mysteriously meet their end for being too loud about certain topics in this country as well. But, I'd still stand by what I said on the last appearance of the show, that, the comfort of being in this situation right here is probably what it means most to me, yeah. But yeah, it's interesting to hear that perspective from Vin over there.
When I had him on the show and we started talking, I asked that question, and then we start going, and I didn't even think about it. I don't. Do I think, like, am I worried about being guilty in the court of public opinion? Yeah, sometimes. Sometimes there's things I don't care, but I never worry about the government knocking on my door unless you made a threat towards, like, that's different. But just speaking,
which brings me to my next point.
I like to. So be pre-op. Yeah. No, okay. But anyways, I want to talk about the movie videos that you've had coming out. First one, I believe, is Spose. Where's my boots?
Spose. Where's my boots?
Spose. What is this? There's a story there.
There's very much a story there.
Okay.
And first off, I still don't have my boots. So Spose, if you're watching, you've got my address. I'm not going to say it on TV, but yeah, you've got my address. But in all seriousness, Spose is a very good friend of mine who I've known for many years. I mean, it's going on 20 years, I want to say. He's a very successful rapper, label owner, incredible just all-around artist, and he's been very good to me over the years, just as somebody who, I mean, albeit way more successful than me, but is pretty much a lifer when it comes to hip hop, and someone that, kind of like a Brady, but didn't necessarily, grow up with us as kids, that I can lean on for advice or, talk to about stuff that a lot of other people wouldn't understand. And it's odd that I met him outside of hip hop. We were just cash register. We worked cash register together at True Value Hardware in Salem Street in the North End in Boston during my brief stint in college. And we quickly, started talking about music all the time, and I'll never forget it. I mean, back then, I'm going to be a rapper, blah, blah, blah. And, we both said similar things. And I remember at the time there was, a bunch of people that I was working with at the time. When I say working with, we were recording songs in like bedrooms and basements and stuff. But, my cousin's an A&R, I'm going to get a deal. So we all, we're 18, 19, we're going to get a deal and blah, blah, blah. And then he actually did. And so... Fast forward years and years later, probably like 10 years ago, me, him, and Decap did a song together in my bedroom. We're like eating pizza, and Decap made a beat on the spot, and it was a good time. And then we had, I think we did one or two here and there, and then he hit me up and was like, hey, I have this beat. It's very, off the beaten path for me. I think you as well, but I just think that you and I would sound good together. What do you think? And he sent it to me, and I loved it, and he sent me his verse, and I recorded one, and so he did a video for it, and I came up, and I had this pair of boots that I'd only worn one time, and I changed out of them during the video shoot, and then left them at his studio.
Okay.
Now, this was October 2020.
Okay.
And I've seen him, we've seen each other multiple times, and we talk all the time, and it's just one of those things. Every time I see him, every day, I never get the boots. Like, I saw him at a video shoot, which is where I met Nick, who works here. It's a very small world, but yeah, it was a very much just kind of a joke. I was at the studio recording some other music one night with the very talented Scott Stangl down at Red 13 Studios in Lawrence, he's engineered the bulk of the album in terms of the vocals that I just recorded. But we were just messing around, and I told him the story, and I had, because it's how I express myself, I'd written a little verse about it, which became the song. The original verse I wrote has nothing to do with the final version. I went back to the studio for another session, and me and Scott is the first beat I ever, and I say co-produced very lightly. I chose some sounds, I helped arrange the thing, but it was really mostly Scott, who used to be a band leader in one of my bands, or my only band, really. And we made the beat on the spot. I rewrote the whole verse very quickly because it all just came to me, and I realized how much I really miss those boots. I don't even really fully remember what they look like at this point. It's been so long. So it was originally just going to be a joke that I sent to him, and we both really liked the song. And then, like most things in my life, I took the joke too far and was like, all right, let's do a video. And so, yeah, that was kind of just a way to jump off the slow leak of releases that I'm doing right now. And the first one, it has nothing to do with the album I recorded. It has really nothing to do with anything else other than it's kind of just a joke.
Well, I did it, and I really enjoyed the video because of where it was shot. We do call that Coach's Corner. Is that what we call it?
That's what they call it now.
I know Dwayne Erickson.
We just call it North Common, but yeah.
I love that loop, and I was telling you how I drive through that a lot. Any significance to that, or were you just like, I just wanted to shoot it here?
I mean, no real significance other than it was close by. We were doing a bunch of barefoot shots, and it was like 7 degrees outside, and I wanted, for when my feet froze off, I wanted to be somewhere close to home.
Okay.
But no, really, that's the neighborhood that we played in as kids, and the neighborhood itself means a lot to me. Home and Stadium means a lot to me. But yeah, I mean, location was really it was like proximity to home was the biggest factor there.
I do love the shout outs that you give to Nashua, that you show such pride in your city. I'm really sure you were rocking a Silver Knights hat at one point in that video.
Yeah, maybe at the beginning.
Yeah.
Probably because I have one.
Yeah.
Got it free at Dollar Draft Night.
Oh, did you?
Yeah.
I have a ton of there. I love the Silver Knights.
Knights are great.
The next one that you release, Conan's Crosspen.
Conan's Crosspen.
Which I really like this song a lot. I like the line where you say, from Nashua, if you're not proud of your town, I feel bad for you. I really like that. I like how it's sung. I just want that song longer.
That makes me happy.
That.
So I get that a lot, and I love it because that used to be one of my biggest, what I love the most, and one of my biggest frustrations listening to hip hop songs, especially as a kid, and even to this day. There was a few offenders that were extra bad about it, but one of the funniest things to me was when, somebody puts either Madlib used to do this a lot on beat tapes. He'd put the best beat on the whole tape as just like a 24-second interlude.
Yeah.
Or Redman would put one of the best verses on the whole album on just an interlude that's like a minute long. And
you're like, ah.
Yes, but to me, it's very punk rock.
Yeah.
Get in, get out. I think, to me, there are a lot of songs that suffer from people just putting a second or third verse on because somebody told them they have to structure the song that way, and that, well, you have to be X amount of minutes long, and this is That's stupid. I mean, if you see some of the best punk records, some like 58 seconds long, a minute and 5 seconds long. I mean, you don't need a lot of time to say what you got to say. And that song, you know, as evidenced by what you just said, I was able to, you know, hit home for some people. And I think people not even from around here, the sentiment really is that, you know, especially in hip hop, a lot of people are guilty of wanting to be from somewhere else. You know, everyone wants to be from the big city. Everyone wants
I'm from
to
Boston, but I'm really from New Hampshire.
Oh, it's especially around here. It's bad.
Yeah.
You have kids from Pepperell being like Boston. You know,
Yeah.
it's you're not though. You're 50 minutes away.
Yeah.
And similarly, it used to be there was a time when being from Boston was passé, and you know, if you were from Boston, it's but I have roots in New York. And it's,
he passed away as part of Gangstar. I don't think he talked a lot about being from Boston.
He did, but I also, you know, in the height of Gangstar, I was a little kid and I wasn't as aware. I wasn't reading the articles in the magazines and watching the interviews. Gangstar wasn't on my radar till, you know, probably 8th grade, I want to say. And so I couldn't sit here and tell you whether or not, you know, Guru rep Boston from the beginning of his career or not. You know, what I will say is Boston's very proud of Guru, but I'm also very careful to get into a Boston conversation because I'm not going to be guilty of, you know, what annoys me about so many other people. I'm not from Boston.
Yeah.
We go to Boston all the time. Go to Sox games, and I went to school in Boston. I've lived in Boston, but I'm from New Hampshire, specifically Nashua, New Hampshire. So it's I tread lightly when it comes to weighing in on Boston hip hop because while I've been a fan of it my whole life, it's decidedly not my scene, and it's not the school I'm from in the sense that, you know, we have, you know, even though it's very small, our own little thing from around here.
I mean, a lot of people. I have some friends that, some internet friends that we do some wrestling podcasts with, and they'll hit me up with questions about Boston that I can't answer. I go, honestly, when I'm going to go somewhere and I know where I'm going in Boston, I throw in the GPS. That's it. I can't. I didn't grow up in the city. I only go, you know, the Red Sox and stuff like that, or the Garden. I could tell you how to get to those places, but, you know.
Yeah, I mean, I lived in Boston for a few years on and off, and I wouldn't say I need a GPS to get anywhere, but when it comes to a deeper conversation about like something like the Boston hip hop scene, especially in the 80s and 90s, it's something that I'm aware of, and I would say that I know enough of the history of, but definitely I'm no Dart Adams. I can't sit here and you know, write a report for you. So it's something that I'm loath to give an opinion on.
Yeah. Well, anyways, I really enjoyed it. This was a great song. I had to listen to it on repeat. It was really good. Where exactly was that film? I felt like it was somewhere near like Margaritas, but I don't think it like.
So that was a just complete chance. So I borrowed a camera, and Colin Fowler, who we've talked about him last time. Huh? He's very, very good. And we've done work together over the years. I met him through Brady and Jay Essential. And I borrowed this camera, and I know that he had worked on like an older generation of it. So we were just kind of chatting about, hey, maybe we could shoot a video with this. And he said, well, I'll be back home in Nashua for a couple of days. I'll come by your office. And we were hanging out, and it got kind of late, and it just started warming up, and all of a sudden the most insane fog rolled into downtown. And all of the lights were up for the holiday season, and it just looked so good. The light and the fog and everything. He said, let's just do a video right now. Let's just do it. And so we went out and we shot a really cool video, and that is all Colin. I mean, I said, you know, hey, maybe it would be cool to go over here, and I might have made a couple of points of direction, but ultimately it was really just, we went out and walked around downtown Nashua at midnight when the streets were completely empty, and it was just this really thick fog rolled in. And then we got lucky. We were just standing next to a building, and it started spewing steam. So it's like we had a free smoke machine. It was great.
No, that's a good story, you know, to hear, because it's like, you know, like in music videos really aren't on MTV, but
No, it's ridiculous.
you would think that looks like something that could be on there, like no problem.
Hey, I appreciate that.
So and now that brings us to the third one. I believe Jimmy Warren has a piece of this, is involved in this. It's a little bit of a controversial song. Where I say, blank me on soft.
We're going to have to tread lightly about how we talk. We can't really talk about any of the actual lyrics, I would say, but...
There's some things said in there.
There are.
Where we can't say it on Merrimack Television, but if you want to look it up, I'm not going to say the word. Go to Pete's YouTube page.
Yeah, and hold on. Let me just... Warning. This is a callback to something we were saying earlier about, living in a free country. This is absolutely something that will have them watching you, listening to you, and put you on a list. So be warned. Yeah.
So this is definitely a shot at the mainstream media.
Absolutely.
What went into this song and what in the video?
So this was a departure for me. I very much never get political or... I don't usually touch any subjects like this. In fact, it often annoys me when other people do, because not that they shouldn't, just I don't want to hear it. I wrote this really as just a little verse, completely just out of anger. I would say probably 2 weeks before Russia invaded Ukraine.
Okay.
When the news was basically pumping us up for World War III, as they still are.
It's like a yearly thing.
Yeah, I'd say it might be a little worse this time.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was angry, and so basically, it's my ode to our friendly folks and the mainstream news, which you can pick your favorite news network. To me, they're really all on the same team. And they're all playing for the bad guys, for the most part. There are good journalists out there. I don't want this to make it seem like I hate all journalists, but to the main folks out there, the ones that you see all the time, and they know who they are, you know who you are. I'd say, to be political about it, I'd say that I hope that they can see, and I hope that the people that they work for can see that the jig is starting to be up and people are not falling for it as easily anymore. So either they've got to get a whole lot smarter or run for the hills, because the world's changing, and I don't think that people are going to be so easily, well, at least some people won't be so easily tricked into... I'd say something that I'm not sure some of our younger viewers out would understand this, but what this smelled a lot like to me was WMDs in Iraq.
Yeah.
And I remember, that very clearly. And
I didn't buy that when I was in high school.
And they told us if we didn't buy it, then you support terrorism. If you don't believe there's WMDs in Iraq, if you don't buy the narrative, then you support terrorism, and you support Al-Qaeda, and you support Osama bin Laden, and you basically hate the troops. That is obviously not the case. And to me, I'm not going to get into the war itself. I'm not going to sit here and choose sides or, make justifications for either side. What I will say is, it's all real nasty. It's bad business. War is a horrible, horrible thing. But it sure seems like we're getting set up for something here. And the last time this happened, we got really set up for a horrible thing that ended up killing million or so Iraqis and thousands of Americans, and cost trillions and trillions and trillions of dollars. And they turn around and tell us that, well, it's too expensive to give everyone health care, and it's too expensive to give, all kids free school lunch, and no, we can't pay for those art programs and those music programs. Oh, you guys need some missiles? Here's a few $1 billion. And it seems like, we can always afford a proxy war. We can always afford, to bomb some weddings, and we can always afford to arm extremist groups. But all of a sudden, when the American people have their hand out for something that, a huge part of the country believes that we need, then it's, well, we can't afford it. So I'd say that's where this came from. This was it kind of bubbled over for me, like, they're doing it again. They're doing it again. They're doing a rock again. They're doing this whole thing again. I smell it. And so I might be wrong, and time will tell, but that's the sentiment behind
it. I do think a war with Russia is not good for anybody.
No, it's really not.
So totally get it. But how did Jimmy Warren get on board with this?
So I play Dungeons & Dragons with Jimmy every Monday. Okay. Me and Jimmy and a few other guys have been playing for a better part of a decade now. And I wrote the song and then thought, maybe I shouldn't record this. And then I had a recording session, and there was 30, 40 minutes left at the tail end that I said, let's knock this one out. And so I recorded it and thought, well, I'm not going to release it. And I sat on it for like a month, and one night before D&D, I just showed it to Jimmy and said, hey, what do you think of this one? And this calls back to someone we talked about in my first appearance, his older brother Chris, who's my first friend in life. Traditionally, especially in my first full-length album that I did and a lot of projects since then, it has to pass the Warren test. Yeah. And since I see Jimmy every Monday, he's the Warren I see more often now, so he can do the Warren test. He's been authorized, and so I gave it to Jimmy to pass the Warren test, and Jimmy really, really, really liked it, and he said, we have to do a video for this. That was on a Monday. We were shooting the video Wednesday night.
Oh, wow.
And so it was it's funny because that was the most recent video I've shot, and it came out right away just because we were both so excited about it. I have videos that we shot 6 months ago that are still in the editing phase. So it was one of those just, again, it has nothing to do with the album or anything. That one was produced by Carlos Holmes as well, who did the album, but this was separate, one-off, if you will. But yeah, we just got excited and said, let's do it. So it's the first time I've ever done anything with a green screen as well. So it was interesting.
No, it's good that you got that out, because that's something too. Like if you sit on that and then the news cycle changes,
Oh, it did. In between me writing it and me recording it, Russia invaded Ukraine. So it definitely, when I recorded it, I thought that, and I'll be honest, I'll take the loss on this one, but I thought that maybe Russia wasn't going to actually invade, and it was posturing, and that we were being fed some propaganda, which clearly was not the case. But do I still think we're being fed propaganda? Absolutely. But things change. So it's good to sometimes let something breathe, because you never want to. It's fine to make art from emotion, from raw emotion, but you want to be careful about who you then expose to that, because when you make something so raw, it's a personal, it's a piece of yourself. So you're exposing a piece of yourself. So you do want to be guarded about how and when you release it. I've never been good at that, so we just kind of said, there you go.
Yeah. And big shout out to Chris Warren. He's one of my best friends too.
Oh yeah, love you, Chris.
So a friend of ours passed away, and I end up, I call out of work. I end up talking to Chris. And we've talked about this. I end up talking to him for like 5-6 hours.
That's how it goes.
He's the type of friend, and I love him. You don't have to see him every day to end up. Nothing changes. The friendship never changes. I don't have to see him all the time. It's like no time has passed. So. Yeah,
you'll just get a phone call at like 12:45 on a Thursday night, and end up talking to him until 3:30 in the morning, and then maybe 8 months later it'll happen again.
Now, out of these new videos, just random question: is there anyone that you have liked the most, or you feel like people are really liking the most, or?
This last one that we're talking about right now that I can't say the title of.
Yeah.
So it's just go to the Pleasure Pete YouTube channel and you'll find it. It's the one with the inappropriate title, but that one definitely. Now, nothing I've ever released has ever gone viral, if you will, or gotten tons and tons of plays. But that has significantly more plays than Conan's Crosspan that we released 3 weeks a month prior. So I think anytime you're talking about something that's kind of topical in the news, it'll probably get in. I don't know if that'll be sustained over time, if people will continue to like that one better. But for now, I'd say it's probably the most popular one. The Spose one was, I think, a really fun video, but me and Spose probably watched it more than anyone else, just because it was it was for us. But yeah, Conan's Cross Pen is probably my favorite video I've done, not just in this group, in a long time. Yeah, it's out yet. There's some videos that I haven't released yet that are also up there for favorites of mine. But of the stuff that's out yet, Conan's Cross Pen, I'm proud of that song. There's Aaron Burnett, who's a really talented saxophone player, ended up, jumping on the track. Kind of not last minute, but it was, Carlos had an idea. Like, I know this saxophone player that I think would sound really good on this. So how would you feel about, having him kind of go over and do some improv? And it turned it from what would have probably just been like a little interlude in between songs to its own song. And so that one, the song, the video, the whole process, everything, I'm really proud of that one. And anytime I get a chance to feature my hometown.
No, I applaud you. I know you're working hard. You can just tell by what's coming out that that you are putting in the time and everything like that. Now, we're not saying, am I correct, you're going to be performing at the Shashkeen soon?
Sunday. Yeah, this upcoming Sunday, May 15th. I'll be performing I've performed there before a couple times, but this is my first ever rap night. So they have a really good, community up there and a good group, and they do ciphers, and I believe it's, it's like drink deals for industry people and all that jazz. So it should be a good time.
We're not telling anybody to go, but if you'd like to, that's what you can do. We're not allowed to say, Though Nick was like the host of the comedy club there, so maybe he'd let that slide. But we won't do that. You don't have to edit it, Colin.
No, if you happen to be walking by, and,
Come on in. Yeah. No, that's awesome. I would definitely go, but I'm running this a league now, and it's stressing. That's putting more gray hairs in my head, so I will be at the field. But yeah, I did want to get into this because I am very curious, because I think we did a blank versus blank segment last time. And I think you might have said I'm not a Jay-Z fan or I'm not a Tupac fan or something like that. And it got me thinking, what is Pleasure Pete's top 10 maybe favorite rappers, or the rappers that really, influence you? If there is, maybe there isn't a top 10, but
I can give you a list. I won't say that it's a top 10 list, because I kind of hate the top 10 list format. I think that a better way, to your point, is 10 MCs that influenced me in a big way. Busta Rhymes, I'd say, is probably on top of that list. He's the most unique, and the most unique at such a high level, and his beat selection traditionally over the years was just insane, especially in the Easy Mo B days. But yeah, I mean, the J Dilla stuff, it's all gold. Busta Rhymes seldom puts out something that not only isn't fun to listen to, but makes you jump out of your seat. So it's him, Redman, Lord Finesse, Sean Price. And this one, I'm going to say, I have to give kind of a warning on this one, because people aren't going to understand what I mean. But if you don't understand what I mean, you just don't understand. And maybe other MCs will understand. But Tony Touch, the DJ.
Okay, because I'm not familiar.
Tony Touch he's been one of the best DJs around for a long time. He had amazing tapes, and he occasionally will jump on the mic. He's got classic songs, Smith & Wesson, the Beat Nuts, his counterpart DJ Doo-Wop, the Diaz brothers, when they were together. But Tony Touch is just so technically proficient, and he bounces so well and can ride a beat so well in such a traditionalist style. Everyone jumps all over me when I say this, especially when you started off by saying, well, you don't really like Jay-Z and Tupac and stuff. You go, Tony Touch is one of the top 10 best. But yeah. He is. Tony Touch, unreal. After that, it's hard because then we start talking groups, and then I'm separating the MCs and the groups. So I'll continue the list, but I'm gonna kind of count groups as one then, because Tribe Called Quest was very influential to me, but I'm not gonna say Fife over Q-Tip or something like that. Beat Nuts and Beat Nuts both with and without fashion.
Fife's one of my favorite.
Fife's incredible.
I always
Q-Tip's incredible.
I always thought that I liked Q-Tip better, and as years gone by, I was like, I actually like Fife better. Which is I'm not. I know, like you're saying, it's hard to pick that, but I go through them and I listen to Fife's verses on a lot of stuff, and I go, I didn't realize that I liked this better when I was young. Not that you have to compare the two, but
That's growing up. That's just growing up. Your tastes change. All of a sudden, you like Brussels sprouts now. You like Fife Dog. To me, that was always magic to me.
And they introduced Busta Rhymes, if I'm not mistaken, like to the mainstream in scenario.
I mean, yeah. Again, I'm not a historian about it. That sounds right to me. I don't know that. Again, it's subjective. What you consider mainstream, what you consider the real introduction. But I would say that's fair. But yeah, that was a fun scene. But then I kind of take a left turn, and Ari the Rugged Man. I don't know if you remember the group, the Smut Peddlers.
No,
Those old Eastern Conference Records dudes. That was a real big influence on me. Cage, Mr. Eon, DJ Mighty My. That was big for me. And for any of you out there, if you want to go on a real fun field trip, go down a rabbit hole of filth and disgust. Smut Peddlers' album, Porn Again, that is worth a listen, and it's a masterclass in writing and rapping. It's subject matter-wise a little much for most people, I'd say, but if you want to know what was going on in my head and what I was listening to when I was like 14, 13, it was that, and that's why I am the way I am.
Now, can I ask a question here? Because there's being a lot of names that I'm not familiar with at 37 years old that you knew at 13 years old. I guess I grew up on the radio and MTV. How are you finding these? Because I don't think a lot of these names.
People's older brothers.
Okay.
And Skateboard Tapes.
Ah.
I didn't skateboard. I was way too fat to skateboard. But a lot of my friends did. And all those skate tapes had incredible music. And they all had music that you didn't hear anywhere else. And then really it was, it would trickle down from Dino's oldest brother to, Gilladine, to his younger brother, who, I was close with since we were in elementary school. So we would get the burned copy of the burned copy, and that's where I found pretty much all of it. I mean, either that or, some of this stuff, Smut Peddlers, I found from... I was at the record store and I found a CD and the cover was Beetlejuice from the Howard Stern Show. And I'm like, what is this? And I had no idea. And I bought it, and that was back when they were, the lame record stores would like ID you for parental advisory stuff. But if you were cool, you knew where to go. And I remember coming home with that CD and just being like, I was dumbfounded. I didn't know that there was hip hop like that. I thought that hip hop was either 94.5, 88.9, or like it's either, Acrobatic and Edo G and, Tribe and blah, 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 or it's what I hear on MTV and 94.5. I didn't realize there was another lane. And, now, years later, there's a million. And especially in the age of the internet, you create your own if you want.
Yeah, it's definitely evolved. But I always, Chris was the same way. Chris would be like, he was always into stuff I didn't know. Like, I'm pretty sure, like, Dispatch got popular, at least in our area, at least in Nashville, New Hampshire, because of Chris.
That's definitely why I listened to Dispatch as a kid. I can't speak for anyone else, but it makes sense to me. I would say that both him and I share almost compulsive need to find the music or the movie or the show that no one else has seen yet. Yeah. And it's obnoxious. And I've eased up in my older years, but that tracks. And when it comes to now, this was a different story. I wasn't seeking out at the time, the most underground stuff. It was largely like, oh, what is that song from that skateboard tape? I have to find that. Or what is that song from this blank CD we found in my friend's older brother's car? And there were...
How are you figuring that out before, because this is not when you could just type in Google.
It was an arduous process. 88.9 WERS, which doesn't have a hip-hop show anymore, but 88.9 at night, that was a big help to us because we would just put on 88.9 at night at 8 p.m. and we would listen all night long and just cross our fingers that song we heard would show up. Or we would try and, take lyrics from the song, Google lyrics, try and figure out, go on message boards, about hip hop message boards, ughh.com and stuff like that, and then LimeWire.
Oh, yeah, that was a thing.
That type of stuff. What was the other one?
Napster didn't last.
No, I didn't. I never got to Napster.
That might have been dead by '99. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe. By the time I got there, it was LimeWire and there was one other. But basically, it was trying to find it. You'd look it up 4 different sources, listen to the 88 and college radio, and then you would hope that you could find it on LimeWire, and it wasn't a weird, wrong song title or wrong version or corrupted file, and we all ruined many a family computer digging for these songs. Yeah,
it's kind of crazy because what I'll do is now, because now you have Google, I'll listen to 92.9 or 92.5, and there'll be a band on there that I'll be oh, God, make sure you remember that lyric when you get home so you can Google it.
Yeah, well, now you also have apps like Shazam where you can your phone will listen to a song and tell you what it is, which is insane to me that exists. But I would have killed for that in 6th grade, just sitting in front of a radio listening to 88.9 at night. I remember the first time I heard the Creators, that blew my mind, and I was like, "There's guys rapping about Boston. There's hip hop that's not from New York. This is insane." And so that opened college radio really opened my world up. So college radio is another. I mean, yeah, I found some artists through college radio, but mostly it was older brothers, skate tapes.
Awesome. Is there any other influences that we missed?
Yeah, but primarily outside of hip hop. Frank Zappa and the Mothers of Invention, big influence on me. I listened to a lot of Beatles growing up, big influence on me. And then listened to just a lot of folk music and world music and stuff like that. So hip hop is a big influence on me, but I'd say overall it's pretty diverse. And also I have a lot of influences, just not music at all.
Okay. Awesome. No, I've always, I remember when Chris, what was that, the Boston album that came home? That was
the Creators.
Yeah. And that was, I remember the first time I heard that. Acrobatic was on that too, right?
Yeah, it was the Creators plus
a bunch of people.
Yeah, it was everyone, was kind of the inspiration behind the song that Brady released a couple of years ago.
Yeah, awesome stuff. Yeah, that's just interesting. I mean, I look back and I just think about how things are now, and they just were not like that when we were growing up. You really had to try to figure out where the heck stuff was. But it was crazy that, looking back, that you and Chris always knew these things, and I'm I just go off of MTV and the radio. I don't know where this stuff is.
Yeah, so. I mean, I think it's at some point it kind of becomes a point of pride to.
Yeah.
I mean, look at that. You ever heard of this? I bet you never heard of this. I bet you've never heard this. And so I mean, I remember doing that with Chris, and that was a thing growing up. But it also, we had it a lot easier than the generation before. We had burned CDs, and we had a lot of access to things, even though it was slow and it was crazy, we had downloadable music and YouTube, and I mean in the later half of it. But yeah, it was. It's always going to be the case, and I'm sure that in 30 years I'm going to look at young kids doing music and be like, it's so crazy, they don't even have to write rhymes anymore. They just think it and it shows up on the song. And so it's whatever technology they have and cool stuff they have, I'm sure I'll look at it and either be a curmudgeon about it or say, oh, I wish I would have had that.
Yeah. A lot of music on the radio though, these days, especially on 945, I'm like, I can't do it. I can't listen to this. You know, or even on 969, it's mainstream hip hop seems like it's evolved into something that I just don't like.
I mean, sure, but as evidenced by the list I just gave you, it's not really something that was ever a thing to me. I mean, Busta Rhymes you used to hear on the radio. You would hear Redman on the radio occasionally, like you'd have some hits that were kind of breakout that you'd hear on 94.5 or a more commercial station like that, like I'll Be That and stuff like that. But, yeah, I mean, you'd never in a million years hear Cage and Mr. Eon on the radio. You'd never in a million years hear Ari the Rugged Man on the radio or The Artifacts or, you know, any of these groups that I would hold near and dear to my heart. It's, you know, I gave up at a very early age, you know, thinking that the people that I loved and idolized and influenced me would ever be in a movie I liked or a TV show I liked or a song on the radio or be on the soundtrack or, you know, I know this to be true. And part of it, I'd say maybe even if it's subconscious or maybe it's right out there on the surface, I'm not sure. I'm too stupid to analyze, but that's part of the reason why I like, you know, some of these acts and I'm attracted to because they're not out there in the glitz and glamour and you know, up on the diamond throne. They're just down in the sewers with me.
Awesome. I want to ask one more question before I get into Blank versus Blank. Pleasure Dome, I know you're releasing a lot of stuff. Any other people coming on board right now, or?
Nothing that I could probably talk about right now, but there's some plans in the works. I'd say likely by the next time I come see you, I'll be able to talk a little more about some of the plans. At this point, it's a little early to announce anything. Okay. But stay tuned.
Totally cool. All right, let's get into Blank versus Blank. Got some real like random ones for you here.
Okay.
You remember 2004, the Red Sox and everything like in that time period. Who would you rather have on the mound, Derek Lowe or Tim Wakefield?
Tim Wakefield, all day. All day. I'll answer that quick. The same way every time. First off, for the same reason why I like Ari the Rugged Man and people like that, I'm always going to love the knuckleballer. I'm always going to love the people who are a little off the beaten path and a little crazy. And so, yeah, you don't have to, Wakefield.
Yeah, he was so worried that he wasn't going to be welcome back to Boston after he gave the home run to Aaron Boone in 2003. I was in a Hooters that night, and it was destroyed.
Why?
That's where we went to watch the game.
Okay.
I was 19, so there were some girls I went to high school with still working there.
Okay.
But that place was demolished after that. All right, who would you rather... Now, these are very frustrated with some of the things the Red Sox have done to Don Orsillo.
Okay, maybe this will cover that.
But when they were a duo, who did you like better, Remy or Orsillo?
Remy, but I mean, Mustache was doing a lot of the work there.
Is it unfair because Remy's such just like...
It is unfair. I mean, especially he just recently passed.
Yeah.
We just watched the memorial service on TV, and it would be kind of hard not to say Remy right now, but that is my honest answer. I liked Remy quite a bit, and I liked his attitude. I liked his whole approach. He just had a great spirit about him.
I gotta say, it's so frustrating that Orsillo, they did not use his video that he made during the tribute.
Yeah, that's where I thought you were going at the beginning. That was...
I never liked the other guy, O'Brien there. Never liked him.
That was not cool. Now, granted, there might be some things going on that I don't know about, and perhaps we don't know the full story, but from what it looks like on the surface, that was pretty... Can't say what I'd like to say. I'll say that was pretty rotten.
Yeah. Kurt Angle, Olympic gold medalist, or Chris Jericho, Y2J?
Man. Just sub in Rulon Gardner. Can I just answer Rulon Gardner? So, admittedly, I haven't watched wrestling since it was like Stone Cold and The Rock and DX.
This was their era too, though. Like, well, they both were there around like, well, Jericho was there, but
I remember Jericho did like the Walls of Jericho. That was his thing. And I remember Kurt Angle. That was his thing. Like, I'm the real wrestler from the Olympics. I don't have a strong opinion about either of those people, but I would probably say Chris Jericho only because growing up actually wrestling, it bothered me that Kurt Angle did pro wrestling because especially when I was like boys club, like 7th, 8th grade, like I do real wrestling, that's why I stopped watching wrestling, was when I started wrestling at the boys club.
So the funny thing is I started wrestling at the Boys and Girls Club. The Lawyers got me in, but I remember watching Rick and Scott Steiner, and they were wrestlers from Michigan.
Yeah, they wear the headgear, right? Yeah.
I couldn't wait to get headgear. I knew the difference between the two. Like, I did. And I always thought, well, I'll wrestle, like, I'll do this real wrestling, but I actually still love this. And I always loved, as a pro wrestling fan, the guys that would come from amateur wrestling to wrestling. They'd always be my favorites. And that's still, to this day, I'm very biased to that.
So you're a Kurt Angle guy.
Oh, are you kidding me? Kurt Angle wished me a happy birthday one year.
Very cool.
My brother donated to his charity. So
very cool.
The Office or Seinfeld?
Seinfeld.
I knew you were going to say that.
Yeah. That's an easy one for me, but I think there's plenty of great stuff from The Office, and I'm not going to sit here and trash The Office. I think it was, like many shows, probably went on a little too long, but Seinfeld's the easy answer.
Yeah, I think Seinfeld, their final season, all their seasons were pretty good. The Office, obviously, what Seinfeld didn't lose was their main star. There's no show without Jerry Seinfeld. Office lost Steve Carell. It was hard to keep that show as good as it was without him.
Yeah, and maybe I'm remembering wrong, but there was like a writer's strike at some point towards the later seasons and stuff like that. I mean, there's a lot of things that happen in shows. There's so many moving pieces to keeping a TV show going. I can't imagine keeping one going for even 5 seasons, let alone 10 or whatever it is, or 8. But yeah, Seinfeld, easy answer.
Okay. Coach Horn or Coach Jackson from Pennachuck football days? Man, you had the young coach and the older head coach.
I mean,
at the time he was young.
He's still young at heart. I would say, if you ask me who I'd want to go have a beer with more, the answer would be Coach Jackson. If you ask me, like, okay, my son's playing his first year of football, who do you want to be his coach? Coach Horn.
Okay.
Coach Horn made a man out of me. I showed up to football, a chubby little kid that's never done anything remotely athletic in my life, and I came out, pretending to be an athlete, but confident about it. So it's make no mistake, I'm not an athlete, but he definitely he whipped me into shape, and definitely that's how I'd like to answer. If I had to bring my kid to his first day of football, I'd love it if Coach Horn was the coach. If I left here right now and went to go get a beer to talk about, football, Coach Jackson.
All right, fair enough. The Silver Knights or the Nashville Pride?
Nashville Pride. I would love to find an authentic DJ Boston jersey. Or Sam Horn Pride jersey.
What about Glenn Murray?
Glenn Murray would be... How much time we got? So...
we can add a little bit on that.
Glenn, I would love that, but for very different reasons. And I'm not sure how much I can say, but that ties into, another really exciting thing I have going on, and that I was cast in a movie.
Oh, yeah, you mentioned this.
Yeah, which it'll be shooting in the fall. But as you know, I was not a baseball player growing up, but I play a baseball player in this flick.
Okay.
And it's going to be a really good time. But yeah, I would love to get some old Pride jerseys. I would also really love to find a way to make some Nashua Dodgers, like Roy Campanella and Don Newcomb jerseys.
Oh, yeah.
I would love that, Maybe we'll do that, find a way to sell them for charity or something. But
I know a guy who could probably do it. He's been on the show. He's made some Expos jerseys for us before. I'll let you know. But
yeah, we'll talk.
Where would you rather go if you had to go just get something quick to eat downtown Nashua? Would you rather go to the Garden or Espresso Pizza?
It's largely a mood thing, but the Garden, I'd say 75-25 Garden espressos, because I generally wouldn't eat. I'm downtown during the day, evenings. I'm not eating a piece of pizza for lunch. And these days, the older I get, the less I'm backing off dairy more and more. But so I'm more of a sandwich guy. I also, Espressos doesn't serve beer, so there's that. But I still love espressos, and I've gotten espressos very recently.
Those are just two staples. Like I love the Garden, even though they could clean it a little bit better. But it's like that's part of the.
Hey, listen,
that's part
it's part of
like
the charm.
Well, that's what the thing is. Anytime I bring someone there that's never been, they're like, "Oh, the sandwiches were great, but that bathroom." I'm like, I don't know what to tell you. This is how it is.
But the positive side is that the stickers that I've been putting up all over the years are still there. So
But Pete, before we go, anything else you want to promote? Is the Shashkin the only kind of thing going on right now with performances? Or
yeah, I've got some. Maybe I'll see you before then, but I'll be opening up for Spose on his last stop on his tour this summer. And we're going to be doing a show Friday night, August 18th, up at Wally's in Hampton Beach. Okay. So we're going to be doing a nice little beach party. That's going to be a really good time. But yeah, and again, I'm not selling anything or asking you to buy anything, but if you happen to be on the internet walking by pleasurepete.com, feel free to stop on in. And if nothing else, just a place to stay up to date with events, new videos, new music, links to everything. And there is a shop there too, of course. You don't have to shop there, but it's anything that anyone could do to support local art anywhere is always appreciated.
Yeah, I got to get on there and order a T-shirt. Are there any in stock?
There aren't any left, but
when they are in stock, let me know.
Yeah, next time we do some shirts, I'll bring you one for sure.
All right, well, Pete, I really appreciate this. This has been fun.
Thanks for having me.
Everybody out there, again, keep your heads up. Have a great week, and go Free Jacks. Let's win another one. But until next time, let freedom ring.
Go Jacks.